Yeah, a little bit of that old down-home gospel guitar. Now there's hundreds of blues guitar players, blues rock guitar players, country guitar players, and you could argue all day long about who is the best kind of representative of the sound of each one of those styles. And there are a lot of great ones. But when it comes to gospel guitar, the list gets very small. If you go back into the 1920s and 1930s, Blind Willie Johnson was a guy that was a gospel guitar player, even though his guitar style was very closely related to blues. Then you had Sister Rosetta Tharpe in the 1940s. She was very popular. She could pack a stadium playing electric guitar and singing gospel songs. But really the person that most defined the sound of gospel guitar in the 20th century, I think most people would agree, is a guy named Roebuck Staples, and he was known to one and all as Pops Staples. Now Pops was the father, literally, of the Staple Singers, which was a family gospel group that comprised Pops and his children, essentially. And the featured vocalist in that group is still around, fortunately. Her name is Mavis Staples, one of the greatest voices of the 20th century. And even as a teenager, she just knocked your socks off. Now, Pops grew up in the Delta, and he grew up in an era when he literally was able to see legends like Charlie Patton. He saw Howlin' Wolf when he was still living down south, So he was surrounded by blues. He lived on Dockery's plantation. And like a lot of his contemporaries, he might have followed the blues path, but he chose gospel, or gospel chose him, whichever way you put it. And by the 1930s, he was living in Chicago. His family was growing, and by the 1940s, they turned into an official gospel group, a vocal group, backed by his guitar. Now, guitar was kind of unusual as a gospel instrument. Because it was so closely related with blues, it was kind of considered a little bit on the devil's side. But Pops made it his sound, and the Staple Singers enjoyed their first commercial success in the 50s with a song called Uncloudy Day. And it featured Pop's guitar, and they were so spectacular that everybody started using guitar. It became an accepted instrument after that. Now, the hallmarks of Pop's sound really are not altogether different from country blues. That was his upbringing, and it's the guitar style that he brought with him when he went into gospel. However, the difference in gospel, and it's a huge difference, is the subject matter. And so instead of singing about your girlfriend or singing about, life on the farm or some of the typical down-home blues subjects, you're singing about the Lord and about salvation and about, better days are going to come, spiritual songs. And so this affects the choice of notes in the musical sense. And one of the things that's most prominent in the gospel sound is just comes down to one word. It's amen. And you hear it in church, at the end of the prayer, at the end of the service. And it's just sort of bringing it all back home. And in a musical sense, amen is very simple. It's the fourth degree of the scale, resolving to the third. So you hear this. And we all feel that. It's that feeling like it's sort of hanging, it's suspended. They call that the suspended fourth. And then resolving to the major third. When you increase it to a chord, you could have A major, resolving to E major. Now, one thing that Pops and the Staple Singers brought into their amen sound was a little bit of that blues. So instead of strictly the major triads, they would use the dominant seventh chord, so A7, resolving to E major. So you get a little bit of that grit incorporated into the sound. And you can voice that in any number of different ways. You could play the A7 and E major like that, or A7 And with different voicings, you kind of bring out the bluesy quality a little bit more, but it all kind of comes back to that effect of the fourth to the third, the amen.